This is just a packet.
Yeah, but I
Print out, yeah.
I don't print.
Yeah. I really should get an iPad at some point. Just
Yeah.
makes sense.
Shall I call your dad?
Are you kidding me? He just finally got an iPhone today,
Oh no.
so that he has a real smartphone.
Okay. That's pretty funny. Funny.
When, after you get through this stage, can you turn it over to me? I'm going to read this. It talks about how many votes he needs if there's fewer than 7 members, because this is all you're going to have is 5, so he needs to get 4 out of 5 votes.
Right.
So after you do this one,
You're going to take over.
yeah, before you open the public hearing and hear the case,
Right.
if you want to, just ask me to announce, because there's less than 7 members, what the rule of voting rules are. So we'll make sure that's on the
Make sure they open and close the meeting for hearing.
public hearing, yeah. Just even if there's no public that wants to talk. make sure
Oh no, I
they
know
open
that.
it.
Yeah, yeah, that I know. Yeah.
And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to cover the mic and ask.
How about a battery in the clock?
Yeah,
So
that's
I've been asking for that for months.
Well, it's 7:01. We're going to go for it. This meeting is called to order. The zoning board of zoning appeals meeting date Tuesday, November 19th, 2013. Roll call, please.
Directors Arnold, Galloway,
Here.
Seaver,
Here.
Petrino,
Here.
Williamson,
Present.
Porter, Palmer.
Here. Okay. Approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any corrections or changes?
I would move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We need to approve last meeting's minutes. And thank you. We need to approve last meeting's minutes from July 16th. Does anybody have any corrections, changes? Would anybody like to move to approve it?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Derek, would you please explain today's proceedings?
Sure. We wanted to make it clear for the record that because there's less than the full 7 members here, we just wanted to read into the record the determination of quorum and the approval process to the petitioner. The chair shall, under a normal meeting with 7 members, the chair shall establish and announce that a quorum is present. She shall announce that on all votes, a majority of the members, rather than a majority of those present or voting, is required to pass any action. If fewer than all 7 members are present or will be voting, the chair shall explain to all petitioners affected that 4 votes will be required for approval. Each petitioner shall be given an opportunity to request postponement to a future meeting if she wishes to have all 7 members present to hear the case. So we just wanted to make sure the petitioner was aware of that. In this instance, an affirmative or an approval would require 4 of the 5 members present, and that you do have a quorum. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Krebs, do you understand that? So you need 4 out of 5 votes. Okay. Okay.
Could I ask a question?
Come to the microphone if you're going to ask.
This is my second time around. Is it uncommon to have less than all the members at the meeting? Or is that
Is it uncommon?
right? In other
It
words,
happens.
it does happen?
It happens, sure. I've been on the board for 18 years. It happens.
Right. If we were to postpone, what would you guess is the likelihood of having all 7 members present at the meeting?
Likely.
Likely? Okay.
But ideally, I don't believe that it's a problem for us to continue since we do have enough to vote. So
Okay.
there's not a true reason not to continue.
Okay. Understood.
Yeah.
If I could, through the chair, at the July 16th meeting, which was the last time we met, there were 6 members present. At the May 15th meeting, there were 4 members present. Those are the only 2 times we've met this year, I believe.
Right.
So, and I do want to clarify, but through the chair, if at some point he does feel that he doesn't have or is not seeing support of 4, can he withdraw his request at any time during the meeting? I believe he can.
At any time?
Yeah, he does not, he's not required to do it now, correct?
I don't know.
Yeah, I believe by the ordinance, it's, as long as you've been informed of it, you have the ability to withdraw it at any point if you feel that you want to be heard by all 7. I don't think that would be an issue for the board.
Is that the case, Mr. Krebs?
Well, I'll have to believe what he says, but I'd like to proceed as of now.
All right. No problem. Okay. Normally, the way the meeting goes, just so that everybody knows, is that the petitioner comes before us, tells us what he's wanting to do, and we talk to our CCS director. We ask for then any public remarks. Then we close the public hearing. We talk amongst ourselves. We come up with a solution, so to speak. So, if you'd like, please go ahead and present, and please come to the podium.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, my name is John Krebs. Thank you for being here. I initially came in front of the board on May 15th, 2012, when I was initially heard on the 2 variances I'm being reheard on tonight. One is for a rear yard, and I would actually like some clarification because there's some confusion between a setback. Is the setback the distance from the property line, or the distance against the 5-foot requirement?
The setback is measured from the property line to, in most instances, the foundation or the closest facing wall of the building, if it's from the side or rear. So it's
Okay.
property line to building.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So my variance requests are as follows. It's a 3-foot rear yard setback and a 2-foot side yard setback on the construction of an accessory building. At last meeting, after Chairman Porter closed the public hearing, I was questioned whether or not I had considered any other design alternatives, including a side entry design. At that time, I had to confess that I hadn't given it full consideration, but I did have concerns about lot coverage as well as accessibility to the garage. As discussion ensued in the meeting, many topics were brought up, including lot coverage, garage size, there was a nonconformity concern, house footprint, as well as house location. In the end, both variance requests were motioned to be denied, and both were denied by unanimous vote. After the meeting, logically, all I could come to is that the board truly did feel that there was another reasonable alternative that would keep me within ordinance, and that, looking at my property, the only other design I could do is a side entry design. So I did some research. In particular, I came in the Ferndale ordinance to section 10.4A1 that has to deal with off-street parking. And based on the information that I got from there, I contacted Mr. Delacourt on September 3rd of this year, told them my intent was going to be to come back in front of the board on the same variance hearings, and then on September 20th of this year, I formally submitted a letter that went through that additional information, and it also included a conceptual drawing of a side entry garage. So the 2 different variance requests, my end goal, what I'm trying to do, I want to build a garage on my property that is accessible and that can house what I'm feeling is becoming a socially standard car. The building of the proposed garage and the location, assuming that I were to be granted the variances, would not inhibit light or air to adjacent properties. There's also fire concern that needs to be considered. However, my neighbor to the south, well, if the garage was constructed, my house would be the closest property to the garage, and it would meet the 10-foot setback on another building. and the next closest building would be a building on my neighbor to the south. They have one accessory building that is on the also the south side of their line. But due to the ordinance and the size of our property, there could not be a second accessory building built on that property. In terms of compatibility, I believe the garage is compatible with other garages in the neighborhood. I also do not believe that the size of the garage would be inconsistent with other garages in the area. I see no effect on vehicular or pedestrian traffic and no additional nuisances. On my particular property, it was noted in last meeting that the footprint of my house is larger compared to other properties. And I'm also set off my north property line by 8 feet. These two things, I believe, create a unique circumstance to my property. Lastly, these two unique circumstances were not self-created. I purchased the property in March of 2012, and the building itself is as purchased. Now, my primary argument has to do with accessibility to the garage. There should have been, and these would be from the initial application. I supplied 2 drawings. And these 2 drawings, they would be on sheets 2 and 3. These show, just to give an idea of the challenges that would be presented if I had to build, to the ordinance with a 5-foot setback versus my requested 2-foot setback. My main argument, if I built to the 5-foot setback, it creates a burden trying to make the cut over to get into the garage. After I did my research, after I was denied, I came upon sections 10, or it was section 10.4A1, which has to do with off-street parking, and it gives a few requirements. So those, and also I think at this point I should point out I provided a conceptual drawing at the time I submitted the letter that shows the garage I want to build in the side entry orientation. So from section 10, if we're looking at a 90-degree parking space, the ordinance requires a 24-foot maneuvering lane. If we were to, model the side entry garage as being a 90-degree parking space, the maneuvering lane would really be from the front of the garage to my south property line, and I would be given only 15 feet. So this falls 9 feet short of what the ordinance would call for. So this, much like the first case, it presents a practical difficulty for me if I build the garage in any way that would adhere to the ordinance. I believe the true intent of my particular variance request has to do with spacing. And as I said before, in this case, the minimum spacing between any building would be 10 feet to my own property. If I had to build, to a lesser variance than what I request, I feel that my real options would be to either have no garage constructed or to construct a garage that is not truly accessible without some curb. In either of these cases, I think I'm being done less justice than is being afforded to my neighbors. Does the board have any questions?
And what does the city have to say?
Thank you. Good evening. Actually, the applicant's done a pretty thorough job of explaining his request at this point. For the record, the applicant is requesting a 2-foot rear yard setback, which would set the rear yard setback at 3 feet for the proposed detached accessory structure, and a 3-foot side yard setback, setting the actual side yard setback at 2 feet. So both of these requests are identical to the requests he made previously It has been more than 1 year since those requests are made, so that requirement of the ordinance has been fulfilled. The requests have been publicly noticed in keeping with the ordinance. A public hearing is required in association with the variances. Just one public hearing is required for both items. Same process as we held to last time, but each item may be held and voted on, and in fact we suggest that each item be dealt with individually when it comes time for motions. The packet does include potential motions for both approval and denial of each item, so there are 4 potential motions included in your packet. It is acceptable to move the motion in the packet as is and only make any adjustments. With that, we are here to answer any questions regarding the ordinance or the request. Thank you.
Mr. Krebs, when you purchased the property in March of 2012, at that point, did you buy the property planning to build a garage in the backyard? I mean, you knew it didn't have a garage when you bought it.
Yes, I did. I was planning to construct that.
Okay. Did you take a look at the zoning ordinance at that time?
I did not at the time of purchase.
I guess I just want for clarification, this 11 by 17 letter size was just passed down. This is not the proposed plan, is that correct? Side entry?
That is correct. I included that when I drafted a letter in September of this year, and when I submitted it, I used that, I guess, as an addendum to the letter to show kind of a conceptual drawing if I were to build in the side entry orientation.
Apparently it wasn't clear to staff at the time that this was meant to show what a side entry garage would require. So when we heard the presentation, that's why we quickly made a copy of it and distributed it. This, the applicant has submitted or intended it to be submitted to demonstrate the impracticality of a side entry garage as evidence of why the variances are necessary. So that's why that is in front of you. We apologize that wasn't included in the packet.
So the request this evening is essentially the same plan as was requested previously.
That's correct.
And at the last hearing, Chair Porter asked about a 1-car garage or a 1.5-car garage that apparently wouldn't require a variance, at least for one of the setbacks. Is that not correct?
Well, I recall Chair Porter questioning the size of the garage. However, the size of the garage isn't the issue in this case. It's really the setbacks, so I can gain accessibility. Changing it to a 1-car garage, if I still need the 5-foot setback, it's not buying me anything because I'm still facing the practical difficulty accessing the garage.
So in the minutes that were included, Chair Porter asked the applicant if he had considered reducing the size of the proposed structure to either a single or a 1.5-car garage, which would eliminate the need for a side setback variance. I don't know if that's in fact accurate or not. I guess it could be. We'd still have a tight turn to make around the corner there, I guess, if we were going to push it to the north. I mean, could you explain again, or just expand on your comments that this isn't a self-created, hardship, that if you chose to have, not to construct this or not to construct as large a garage, that you would better be able to meet that standard?
Right. So, included with the packet, which I don't, maybe or maybe not, they don't have this strong. It shows kind of an aerial overview. It shows you that my property at 3363, it does have a larger footprint than other properties, and it's also set further back on the property. So if my house was set further forward on the property, and I could have more than, say, 10 feet between my house and the garage, there may be enough room that I could make that turn. In addition, from my house to the north property line, it's 8 feet. If that was in fact built at 5 feet, that would give me the 3 feet that I would need to be able to build within ordinance. So I believe that the placement of my property does create a unique circumstance.
So just so I can make sure I'm clear, your argument as to the hardship, or the non-self-created hardship, is the fact that your house is essentially longer than the other homes, and its placement north and south on the lot is what creates your hardship.
Yes.
Because the front yard setback, I mean, don't measure it, but it looks to be about consistent with all the other houses, which is what's required.
As somewhat looking at, I think it's also the rear of just the pure footage from the rear of the house to the back property line.
Are there any other questions to the applicant?
Has anything changed in the circumstances of your property since you were last before this board?
No. No changes to the property.
Mr. Krebs, I know this is something that may be more costly than just building a standard garage, but have you considered a garage design where the entry door is slanted slightly so that it would be easier to pull in and still be in compliance with the 5-foot setback?
You know, I've at least entertained that idea, but I can't come up with any feasible design that really allows me to use the garage in full. You know, when you have to start looking then at the placement of how the car would be sitting in the garage, and it creates a very, very awkward garage design. Does that answer your question?
So you've considered it, but you don't like the usability of the garage with that type of a design, basically?
You know, I do not consider it to be a feasible design for it to be consistent with the other properties in the neighborhood.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you. And now I'm going to open it to the public. Is there anyone here for the public hearing that would like to say something for or against? Please step to the microphone and state your name and your address, please.
My name is Dave Krebs, 20871 Lockmore, Harper Woods. In request to his thing turning the garage sideways, if you look at the footprint, it isn't feasible, because this wall here, matching up with the back setback, you know, that wall there would be about 15 feet long. You know, so if you turned it in here, you just wouldn't have enough room. You know, if you tried to draw that design and turn it, it just, you know, this wall here would be smaller than this wall. It just doesn't work out. I am a builder, and we've looked at a lot of different things, and that just isn't feasible to put that in. If you look at the size of the lot, you look at the footprint, to turn it in there, you'd have to turn in there. This wall here you could make 25 feet long, but this one here is 15 feet long. So your car to go in there, you know, you'd have to pull it up this way, I guess, and back it almost sideways to get the door closed. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak during the public hearing? Okay. Public hearing is closed. At this point, I don't know if our board has any questions to.
Well, I mean, maybe just through the chair to Derek, would a carport or some sort of coverage off the side of the house be permitted?
Yeah, carports are permitted.
So that still might raise side yard setback issues, but it could be looked at as a possibility to address his needs.
It is possible. A carport, I don't think is the same as a detached accessory structure. It's more of a architectural projection usually from the house than it is a covered structure. The setback requirements would be the same for the main structure, though, I believe, if it's attached to. Once you attach something to the main structure and provide a roof, then the larger side yard setbacks are required instead of the lesser detached accessory structure.
It seems to me that the aerial view is helpful because it does show that your house is longer, and that does eliminate accessibility for moving in and out of a garage, for sure. There's no doubt in my mind. Every other house in the neighborhood, except the ones along the service drive, basically have one-car garages or one-and-a-half-car garages. So that's what the neighborhood is, because they're small lots. I still say that either way, you're going to have a little bit of a hard time getting a car in and out because your driveway is so narrow and your house goes back so far. Those are the kind of things that it was not anything that you did, but it's pre-existing. It's a house that's been there forever, and that's the way it is. It's hard to change what we already discussed the last time due to the circumstances really haven't changed. I don't know if anybody else on the board feels the same way.
I think one of the issues here is that this house, when the original builder built this house, they chose to build the house longer into the lot. They chose to build a bigger house on the property. That's, for you, had an unfortunate effect. You're the person who's, a recent purchaser. You just purchased it within a little over the past year. But one of the problems here is that there was a decision made at some point in the past that made it difficult for you to comply with the zoning ordinance of today. But that's not necessarily what a variance is designed to address. You have a certain benefit, a larger house, that your other neighbors that have the garage in the backyard don't have.
Through the chair, if I might. Sir, is it okay? I apologize for interrupting. Do you know when the house was constructed? There's a very good chance when the house was constructed that the side yard and rear yard setbacks were either 0 or 3 foot, which would significantly change what was available when that house was built and sited comparatively to today.
Right.
And normally would eliminate the self-createdness part of it, because it would have been change of ordinance that created the hardship of the 5 foot and 5 foot, not any action of either the original constructor or the current owner. So I think the 5 foots came about sometime, and maybe Mr. Petrino can help me. I think it was in the late 90s, early 2000s, at the earliest, which would mean when the house was sited or the addition was constructed, it was either 3 foots or zeros prior to that. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but I think it's relevant to the point that there would have been additional room to build the garage at that time when the house was sited.
To answer your question, the house was constructed in 1949.
Yeah, there's a good chance it was zeros even at that point.
And I would like to, if you allow me, I guess, bring a point up to the board. Someone mentioned that circumstances haven't really changed. However, in my view, here's what's changed. When I left the meeting, part of the denial was because I had other acceptable design avenues to go down to construct that garage, and that being the side entry design. I've now looked into the side entry design, and using the Section 10 ordinance, I guess, as a guideline, I've really ruled that out as as being a feasible approach. You know, I tried to pull in with only having a 15-foot maneuvering lane, and it is just as burdensome as having to do the, you know, the maneuvering that I'd have to do with the initial design.
I guess I want to follow up with what you mentioned earlier about if it's not, right now it's a 2-car garage, correct, what you're proposing, and we don't gain anything by going to a single or 1.5. You still got, the rear doesn't change, and you still got that turn, the cut. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Doesn't change anything to your, I guess, your side lot. Yes, the aerial, I think, does tell a picture, or gives us a picture that I don't think I realized before. Stop.
Well, and I think, in particular, I think the rear setback, in particular, looking at it, it really isn't feasible if we're doing the 10-foot setback from the house and a 5-foot setback from the rear yard. At that point, you're down to a 20-foot deep garage, which isn't going to fit a standard car. I guess that would be at least my concern. For the rear setback there, that would seem like that is one it's not feasible to meet all the current ordinances and put in a garage that actually fits a car.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
Well, I hate to, as someone who likes to work on his cars in his garage, I can certainly understand the desire to have a detached garage. But I just, given the reasoning of last time and what I've seen, I just don't see how this meets the requirements for a variance on these items. And I think it's unfortunate, but as was pointed out, there's other benefits of having a bigger house. And when we're looking at plans for a home on a lot, you make trade-offs. And so I would move to deny both variances, noting that the applicant and his father spoke in support of the proposal, and that we adopt the two motions denying the variances for the side and the rear yard setback.
He made them both, that's fine, but have them vote on.
Oh, we should vote on separate, gotcha, okay.
I suggested to the chair that although both motions are made, that they be voted on separately.
Separately? Sure.
There may be differing opinions on each one depending on the circumstance, so.
Does anyone want to make a second on either?
I will second as to the side yard setback.
A denial of the side yard setback.
Correct.
Item 2.
So I think they're both listed in the proposed as side yard.
Item 2, as publicly noticed, item 2 is the side yard setback.
Okay.
So item 2 has been moved and seconded.
Does anybody want to vote on or second anything on the rear setback?
I will second that.
Okay. Roll call
On item 1.
on item 1.
I'm sorry, one is the
Rear yard.
Rear yard, I apologize, rear yard.
Item 1 is the rear yard setback, and it's been moved and seconded for denial. So an affirmative vote is a vote for denial.
Galloway?
Yes.
Seaver?
nay.
Petrino?
Yes.
Williamson?
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, that passes. Second one would be for the side yard setback. Roll call.
Galloway?
Yes.
Seaver?
Yes?
Petrino?
Yes.
Williamson?
Yes.
Palmer?
Yes.
Both are denied.
Both are denied based on our ordinances. Thank you for coming and taking the time to do all this extra stuff, too.
Yep. Thank you for seeing me.
All right.
You got dismissed?
You're welcome to stay. I don't know how
You can
exciting
stay.
the meeting is.
Communications and announcements. Would you like to know what they are?
Nothing formal.
Thank you.
That's not much of anything. Thank you. Are there any communications or announcements from you guys?
Nothing of great import to the ZBA. We are getting ready to start the master land use plan process here shortly. So if you have any thoughts on the master land use plan, and, you know, this is always a good time if there's an issue with the ordinance that may be driven by the plan, to let us know if you have any issues with any of the existing ordinances. We try to keep a running list of ones that are either badly worded, need to be tweaked, and take care of those all en masse. So if there's anything that's been bothering you or you think we need to take another look at, now would be the time. Also, with the master land use plan coming up, it's a good time to look at the plan itself. You guys are all very experienced in the city and understand the rules and procedures. Take a look at the zoning districts. If anything strikes you as odd or needs to be looked at, I'm sure the Planning Commission would be glad for any input from the ZBA in regards to that. Second, we encourage everybody, and you'll be getting an email if you haven't already. We continue to progress on the city's multimodal plan, which is the city's, we've called it several things, but at the core of it, it is a transportation plan. It makes recommendations on all of the city's major, minor, local streets and what they should look like for all modes of transportation, vehicle, pedestrian, non-motorized, transit, and where those connections should be made between modes. We're actually pretty excited about it right now. The plan itself is being framed and presented as a website with constant living community update possibilities. So the plan, it's out there, the draft route plan. There's implementation, policy, and program sections that will soon be added. But the website has been lovingly dubbed FerndaleMoves.com. It's being developed, and it is available, and we're asking the public and anybody you know from the city of Ferndale or anybody else who uses our transportation system to take a look at it. It describes in great detail the cross sections and the treatments that are being proposed for all of the city's road segments, crossings, and again, like I said, connection points and everything else. And it has a community remarks tool that allows you to identify areas in the city online, interactively. You can put pinpoints on the map, attach photos, comment on certain areas in the city. Anywhere you think the city needs to make an improvement, you can comment on anybody else's suggestions. You may also review the segments that are proposed for the road and make comments on those of whether you think they're appropriate, good for the city, hit the target, miss the target. So we're actually right now we're pretty excited about the tool and have gotten a significant amount of response across the community. But we'd like to keep that up. So if you know of anybody, please pass it along. It's FerndaleMoves.com, and if you haven't gotten it already, you'll get an official email asking you to comment or opine or pass it along. So those are the two major things right now, unless anybody has any questions for staff.
That was for transit, for streets, and what else?
Well, it's non-motorized, pedestrians, vehicles, transit, it's supposed to be a one-stop shop for all future, the existing transportation system in the city and all proposed future improvements, and those improvements prioritized. So that draft network is out there and worth taking a look at.
Is it also crossovers?
Yep, crosswalks, everything.
And having checked it out, it's extremely well done, and we should be very proud and very progressive as a city, and it's about as good as anything that I've seen in the region and elsewhere. That in-depth that you guys have done is,
Yeah, we have.
hats off to you guys.
We're very happy with the response we've gotten. So no, this is significantly different than anybody ever done. We are going to be asking the Planning Commission, in essence, to adopt a website, not a paper plan. It will have a static component, a frozen moment in time adoption, but we expect that plan to be out there in continuity and going forward for constantly upgrading and letting the public know about what programs are being and projects are underway, which ones have been funded, what those designs look like when the engineering comes in. So you'll be able to follow these projects at one location going forward continuously and see how they connect to this plan, how they connect to council's goals and objectives. And so far, we're cautiously optimistic that we're doing something that nobody's really done before, and are pretty excited about it. It needs some refining, obviously, but to tell you the truth, with the progress we've made on it so far, as staff, we're cautiously optimistic and secretly pretty hyped about the whole thing. So take a look at it if you get a chance.
Okay. Anything else, guys? No? Okay, motion to close the meeting?
Bang that gavel, we all go home.
We're going home.
All right. I got it, yep, that's fine. Nicely done, Julie.
All right.